All right. Welcome to the Political Hour. I'm Mhariel Summers, and I am so happy to be here every Friday, bringing you guys my spew on this crazy word they call politics. You guys are tuning in thanks to Power Plug Radio. Make sure you're listening to Power Plug Radio throughout the week. They always got something great going on. Shout out to our Black-owned media in the Tampa Bay area. So the Political Hour, we are a little late this morning, so we'll probably forego a long break. Because there's so much to talk about, y'all. We're halfway through the month of April, and state, local, national politics, it's just so much is happening. On a national level, all eyes are on Minneapolis. If not for the Derek Chauvin trial, young Dante Wright, his life was taken as the officer mistook a gun for a taser. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine has been recalled. How many people have taken it? Biden's talking about bringing the troops home. Russian sanctions. I mean, so much going on the national level. Here at the state level, my God. I mean, this, I interned for Senator Rousseau, and I have had the, legislative experience in the Tallahassee experience, but working for Rep. Rayner and just kind of having a more, I guess, a closer seat to the action and a more in-depth understanding of what's actually transpiring, man. It is not for the meek or the mild. I'll tell you that. We got about a month or less left into the session. There are bills that are being debated on the floor and passed every single day. The first bill, though, to go through both chambers and end up on the governor's desk is, of course, House Bill 1. So we'll talk about House Bill 1. We'll talk about how we're kind of outnumbered here in the state of Florida and what that means, and some other bills to watch. And then on a local level, man, death continues to mount in the city of St. Petersburg. Gun violence continues to plague our Black community in particular. If you are an environmentalist, I'm sure you heard about Piney Point. There's a leak in the bay. We got elections on the horizon here on the local level. And then there are all kind of redevelopment projects happening in South St. Pete that you should know about and you should be following. So again, a lot to cover, and we may not get to all of it, but that's okay, because I promise you, though, there will be more politics to talk about next Friday. So I want to start with the state, right? Normally I start with national. Last week I started with local, but today I'm going to start with the state, because what I'm witnessing what I'm seeing happening at the state level is so perplexing. I mean, House Bill 1, the combating public disorder bill, has passed in both the House and the Senate. What does this mean? What does this mean? This anti-rioting thing. We good? Okay. No. So yeah. This anti-rioting thing is gonna affect anyone who's trying to protest. Ever since Trayvon Martin, to be honest, that has been a new wave of us taking the streets. And enough African Americans have been, publicly executed, is what I'll actually call it. And each time, our reaction as a community, Black, white, brown, old, young, gay, straight, the more we see Black people being executed in public becoming a commonplace, or being understood as a commonplace, the bigger these uprisings are becoming. So when George Floyd is murdered in front of a crowd of people on camera beginning of last summer, man, people all over the nation took to the streets. Y'all remember this. Florida's response is this House Bill 1. And so here are some of the ramifications, right? It's combating public disorder, combating rioting. What is a riot? One of the state legislators asked that. What is a riot? Who has the power to define that something is a riot? It's going to be left into the hands of law enforcement. But the ramifications are going to be huge. Mind you, a mob in this bill is defined as 3 or more people, you and 2 others. If you are considered intimidating somebody to believe your political beliefs, you will be considered a mob when the governor signs House Bill 1 into law. If you were arrested and charged under this new piece of legislation, you're held in custody until your first appearance, no bail. They've increased penalties that otherwise would be misdemeanors or felony charges. Monuments and historic memorials are designated as untouchable, and if you do, you will be facing a felony. And they've also, in this bill, taken local municipality and local government, they've taken them by the hand and said, look, if you decide to change your law enforcement budget to decrease any of the law enforcement action, that there's going to be ramifications. So now your city can't say, well, we're not going to deploy our officers, or we're going to be a little bit more lenient, because the state is saying, well, then the city is now liable for any property damage. So there's this attempt to cut off the independence of local governments. There's no blocking traffic under this new House Bill 1. And what is our protest if it's not marching in the streets? Right? There's no blocking traffic or interrupting quote unquote commercial activities. So there's in all of this, y'all, was in the first 17 pages of this 61-page bill. I invite you to go check out the text for yourself. It's right there. Google Florida House, and it'll take you there. And all you got to do is find House Bill 1 on that site. Very easy site to use. But this bill is an assault on protesting. It's an assault on the First Amendment. And we've had some impassioned speeches by all of the Democrats, from how this is going to be disproportionately applied to Black and brown communities. There were thoughts about, like I was saying, the violation of your First Amendment rights. I mean, all of this was brought to the floor and made on the record, comments made. But as I said, we are outnumbered in the Florida House and in the Florida Senate. And so even our local, representatives, Senator Rouson, Representative Rayner, both gave impassioned speeches on the floor of their respective chambers. But the Republicans have the power. They have the vote, folks. And that's what I'm trying to bring to the forefront. They were largely silent during debate. They didn't have to ask any questions. They didn't need to stand up out of their seat because they knew that they were going to pass this bill. And that's the frightening part about the imbalance in Florida politics. We had the same thing happen this past week with House Bill 1475. And this one is a little bit more controversial, right? This is the trans women barred from traditionally biologically designated female sports. And on the surface, I especially if you are new to the conversation, it seems like a well-intended bill, right? Women have come so far for equal rights, and that's the auspice that this bill was kind of presented under, right? But after watching, these representatives, I watched at least about 3 hours when I got home the other day. Watching these guys legislate, this bill isn't necessary at this point, folks. I sit at a bunch of different cross sections myself. I am a woman. I am black. I am a lesbian. I'm a masculine woman at that. And so I'm always trying to analyze things with this balance, right? Of fairness and humanity. There's this balance. Obviously, I played high school sports. I don't think any of our teams would have wanted to compete where, we felt like it was an unfair advantage on the other team. And surely, one can understand those concerns. But the problem is that the effects that this bill has, the effects are far more chilling than the prospect of what would happen in that circumstance, right? So here's a fact. Since 2013, trans women have been participating in traditionally female sports in the state of Florida. We've had no issues. We've had they weren't able to put up any stats or any particular cases. The bill itself is so ambiguous that anybody can bring about a claim. Your teacher, your coach, maybe a principal, an opposing team's, coaching staff, a parent. And it has such invasive requirements, y'all. We're talking about genitalia examinations. Most of y'all have played sports, and nobody had to examine our genitalia. There's a cost associated with having to get that special exam. I watched legislators try and put up amendments to where this cost can be put on the school. Can it be put on the school district? Can it be put on the state? Answers, no, 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 no. The student and the parent must bear this cost. Another thing about it, y'all, is all ages are subjected to this. And that was one of the most heartfelt pleas one of our representative Rayner put forth is, these are kids. Like, when you really think about it, you know what I'm saying? Like, these are children. And we shouldn't be subjecting our children to such invasive things at the hands of the government, at the hands of the state. That's government overreach. Even existing students, like I said, this is something that's been happening in Florida sports since 2013. And even existing students who are already on teams, already a part of the culture, already a part of the fam, if this bill passes through the Senate and lands on the governor's desk, he signs it into law, they're going to get a notice next school year saying you can no longer play on this team. So I think there are a lot of preemptive concerns. It's one representative on the floor called it a boogeyman, right? Anybody can describe a scary boogeyman and put fear in your heart, right? But the fact of the matter is, this is just like the bathroom bill. It is a concern that just does not exist in our society. And what we're doing is highlighting trans youth and giving the system, a way for them to be systemically isolated, systemically, differentiated. And if y'all know anything about statistics, trans youth make up the highest number of youth suicides. Most trans women can tell you about the harshities and the realities of their life. So many of their lives end in violence. And so whether you understand, how a person identifies or not, a bill like House Bill 1475 it crosses that line of respecting humanity. We obviously want fairness in women's sports, but we need not pass bad legislation that's going to make life harmful for others out of this idea of what could happen. So I said I wasn't going to spend too much time on that, but I definitely wanted to touch base on that bill because it looks like it's going to pass. And both sides made some good examples, right? Like there's this tennis player, Martina Navratilova, and she is a previously adamant LBGT community supporter, but Republicans are running rampant on her quote saying that trans women in female sports is cheating, right? They make another example that the fastest woman in the world, the record holder, that they found that 300 high school boys can beat her time. Fastest Olympic gold medalist. And then there's the biological argument, right? Men wrestling women, men playing volleyball against women, and softball and basketball. And, what I'm trying to say, guys, is when you dig into these conversations a little bit deeper, it's not so black and white. The left has a better argument. First of all, the biological differences don't come into play until puberty. So there's no reason to subject children to this. That amendment at least should have been added. The other thing about it is we shouldn't just allow anybody to put claims out in the air and have others suffer the consequences of those claims. So in this instance, this could harm regular old black girls. Think about it. How many times has Michelle Obama or Serena Williams been referred to as a man, or, they're not built, this, innuendo about their biology? Under this bill, they'd be subjected, I'm sure, at the high school level, trying to compete as athletes. There is the track star from Africa, Caster Semenya, and go look her up. The Olympic Committee actually subjected her to all of this biological testing, right? Measuring the levels of testosterone in her blood. Regular old black woman who just happens to be endowed by her creator, with these amazing abilities, and is being questioned. And so when you have a law like this on the books, I think you just kind of, again, make it open season for people. Children shouldn't be subjected to it. We haven't had any problems. But guys, think about it. I mean, we've heard about this organization called ALEC, right? It came out on a documentary 13th a couple years ago. And so if you're not familiar, it's these groups like ALEC and other kind of right-wing ideological groups. And what they do is they make blanket legislation and pass it around to all the state legislatures in all the different states, right? Give them a couple different options of how to do it. And so the problem you have is when Republicans are outnumbering Democrats the way that they do in our state legislature, these organizations can pass their blanket legislation right through our halls. When you look at politics, y'all, I'm saying all this because it's super important. We get all hype. The highest voter turnout is always for the presidential race. And we get all hype about national politics, and people will spend their hours debating. We just got out of that Trump and Biden, and 80 to 90% of what affects your day-to-day life, I promise you, comes from your state and your local government. I'm talking about, okay, so just take this for example. Your state government controls your schools, your state prisons, who gets tax breaks and the taxes, how they're allocated in the state, commercial and business licenses, how much it costs to get one, what type of certification you need to participate in industry, your roads, your tolls, when new roads are going up, when toll roads are going up. And like I said earlier, what your local government and local municipalities are pretty much allowed to do. That all comes from the state. So if we don't like something that's going on in our community, we have the people in Tallahassee to hold accountable before we have the people in Washington to hold accountable. And I mean that. So there are some other bills. Let me do a little time check here. I'm doing good. So there are some other bills for us to pay attention to coming out of the Florida House. Don't let them raid the Sadowski Fund. Pay attention to that. If you ever hear Sadowski, think housing, because that's what it is. The Sadowski Fund is a trust fund that the legislature is supposed to use to address the affordable housing needs of Floridians all across the state. But every year, without fail, this fund is rated for other projects, for other initiatives. And so there's a bill put in place to put a stop to that, and we'll see how that goes. There are some important abortion bills on the table in terms of when a child feels pain. They're trying to say at I think it's 16 weeks a child feels pain, and so no abortions after that. They're trying to say if you discover your child has a disability in the womb, you can't get an abortion just because the child is disabled. And you know, look all these bills up, guys. There are some food zoning, urban agriculture bills on the table, and some important bills about parental rights. Our state legislature is really lopsided, guys. And unless we start paying attention, they are going to continue to run Florida red. They call us the purple state here because we have these pockets like we talked about, right? Jacksonville, Tallahassee, Orlando, Tampa Bay, the Miami Broward area, right? But outside of that, this state is red. It's red in Sarasota, it's red in Venice and Fort Myers, Daytona, West Palm, Gainesville, Pensacola, not to mention all of these farm towns in between the two coasts. They're red, guys, and they have a stronghold over the policy that's affecting the 5 major cities that are mainly Democratic. And so we got to get rid of gerrymandering. We got to pay attention to what's going on in the state legislature. Okay, so I got that out. I had a rant about those two things. And yeah, now I do think we should take a quick break. But we'll take just a few minutes here, catch my breath, gather my thoughts. And we'll be back, y'all. I'm Mhariel Summers. We'll be back with more.
You're listening to Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams. You're listening to Power Plug Radio. Home of your throwback jams.
All right. So we're back. And I just want to finish off this hour with a few more thoughts about what's happening at the local level and what's happening on the national level, because they kind of coincide. And I think they have a lot to do with guns. Here we are in the 4th month of the year, and as you know, if you follow local news, we've matched the death toll of those murdered by guns last year. Now, granted, one of these individuals, perpetrators, carried out like, what was it, 4 or 5 of these murders was came at the hands of one individual. So when you take that into account, the numbers are still high though, and what I'm most bothered by is everybody involved is black shooters, black victims, black mothers crying. It's hurtful, man. It's hard to like watch when you care about our people. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not necessarily a connection to any of the victims in particular, but studying politics and always watching people and systems and the way different silos interact around the world, and then we get back home and we look at our people and we look at all of the beauty that we provide to this society and all of the glory and sunshine that exists inside of our culture, and on full display for all to see. It's marred and it is so dampened when we look at some of the underbelly of what it is that we as black people have to endure at the hands of our own communities. And so, blame it on Trump, blame it on Biden, blame it on socioeconomics, blame it on whatever you need to blame it on. Blame it on rap music, man. Blame it on whatever it is that you need to blame it on. But no matter what you think about it, the time for solutions is the time now. So I invite you guys to think of your best theories about why what's going on is going on, and join the NAACP, because they are hosting a series of community conversations. So I invite you to join those conversations. They're going to be held publicly. They're going to be held outdoors. There aren't going to be cameras and members of the media. And it's being led by the NAACP. It's a black focused, the National Advancement a National Association and Advancement of Colored People. They're going to host these conversations. The first one is happening this Monday in Childs Park. Monday night in Childs Park. Join the conversation. Come out and listen to the conversation and contribute to it. If you're seeing something that you feel like community leaders need to know, then you belong at that discussion. I'm hoping we can have a more analytical perspective, not just a paternal perspective, that we can begin to think with execute us and take away our rights. Like, that's what it's really about. We have rights in this country just like every other race. And it is unconscionable to think that we can be just killed with such impunity on such a regular basis. And so we can't let up on that. Protesting is necessary. We cannot let up on white supremacy. We have to self-evaluate ourselves. Yes, this is true. But we also have to hold folks accountable. Dante Wright, 20 years old, while Up the street, a police officer is on trial for unjustly killing a black man. Another officer makes the same quote unquote mistake. It's exhausting, guys. So we just got to kind of pay attention, but we can't let up. Keep an eye out on the Derek Chauvin trial. We barely escaped a mistrial yesterday. If you're following, the trial on Court TV, or any of those other avenues, man, they almost hit a mistrial yesterday. So let's follow that. Lieutenant Karan Nazario. That is something that I also wanted to touch on, because it's not just law enforcement. I mean, this guy is an Army lieutenant, and he's not getting any respect from the police. This footage is old, but it just came out because he, is in the middle of a legal battle. But even seeing it, man, it gets underneath your skin, right? Because how is this African American man in his military uniform? How is he subjected to this? So this, those things, they matter, and it's why we have to protest. And it's not just police. I mean, the other guy, the white guy who got arrested, Sergeant Jonathan Pentland. If you watch the video of Jonathan Pentland, he's the white guy who was pushing on the young black boy for walking through the neighborhood. There is this supremacist mindset that people take when they deal with our people. Not always, right? But often. And just to watch it in some of the most aggressive instances, I mean, you don't see that every day. That's not how human beings interact. But when you do see it, it is frightening. You know what I mean? To think that people place themselves on such a high moral pedestal, you know what I mean, that they're able to commit these acts so brazenly and so confidently, not afraid of losing any position, not afraid of losing any job or any of their status in society. You see it all the time. I read these stories about a white person being fired after they were caught on video doing something that I'm like, we obviously shouldn't have been doing that. Like, so despite, what the reality looks like, y'all, and this is all political, you know what I mean? Despite what the political reality looks like in our neighborhood, violence, trying to work towards advancement, and all of the hurdles that we face as a people, we cannot let ourselves be bullied in this society. We cannot let ourselves be victimized in this society, and we always got to call that out and protest, no matter the cost. So, these are my thoughts on this lovely Friday. I'm gonna look back over here and just say, man, make sure you're paying attention to what's going on in the news. Google things, research things. Don't take other people's word for them. Don't take my word for it. But you have to keep your eyes open, because if not, you'll look up one day and you won't recognize the city you live in, neighborhoods you live in, or why your country is the way that it is. So I'm Mhariel Summers. This is the Political Hour. Please come back next Friday. I will be on time. And we will get into some more politics. But this is Power Plug Radio. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good week, y'all.
You're listening to Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams.